I felt like almost like a passenger. I was playing football and all I could think about was like how disappointed I was I hadn't been able to do this. And that was a really like low moment for me. And my dad said to me, listen, your credibility is that you've got your ACA qualification here. Go and give that a go. I went out on a Monday in December to like the local town near me and just started giving out these leaflets. I had 50 leaflets to give out. I was wearing a suit because I thought I need to look like really professional, and it was December, it was freezing cold and I was like shivering. All I have to do is give out the 50 leaflets no matter what. You know, it was go to bed at 2 a.m, wake up at 5 a.m, 6 a.m, 6 days a week. Really tough. Which had a real strain on me. I basically got really sick through the stress and the anxiety of all of it. I was in Harrogate and I was having a meeting with this cafe owner who clearly wasn't interested in my accountancy services. And as I walked out of the cafe, a gentleman said, excuse me, are you an accountant? And this individual ended up becoming our biggest client at the time. It was £18,000 a year. And I got back into the car and I drove towards work, and Coldplay was on the radio, like Paradise. And I remember just like turning the music up and like being like, I'm so happy about like the best thing ever. And I drove straight past the junction to work and I drove up and down the motorway for like half an hour because I didn't want to go in because I was so excited.
Josh, hi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Absolutely fantastic. So we're in Dubai recording this. You reached out and said, can we do something? After saying no once, and then you tried again. And I said, why not? Why not? Because even though you are doing a similar thing to what I'm doing, you've just started doing your coaching thing. You also have a practice. There's enough work to go around for everyone. So as I've said before on podcasts, which you've listened to, it's more about collaboration over competition. But the reason I agreed was because you told me your story about how you at the age of just 26 have grown your own practice to 400K in revenue, 14 members. You are now able to operate it from anywhere. You've just started another business. I thought, fantastic. That's a great story, which I'm sure would motivate and inspire others listening to this, especially my audience, which are full of budding practice owners, existing practice owners looking to grow and scale. And so what you've achieved in the space of just 2.5 years is definitely a story worth telling. What got you into accountancy? Because I know it's not something that you had intended on doing.
No, I think if you told me when I was at college I was going to do an accountancy degree, I would have said no chance. And if you told me 3 years ago you're going to have an accountancy practice, I'd say absolutely no chance. But here we are, and it's been absolutely fantastic, and I've loved all of it, to be honest. It kind of started when I was going to go to university, went to open days, and I went to a talk in Newcastle University. And initially I went to the economics talk, and it was great, and I was really excited, and I was talking to my mum, and I was like, okay, this sounds great. And we got so carried away that actually the next talk started, and it was an accountancy talk, and we were too embarrassed to kind of walk out. So, but we thought, you know what, we'll listen to this. And it was a really, really amazing sort of course. It was a PwC course called the Flying Start course, where there's a balance between education and experience, where you get to go and work in the firm. And I thought, you know what, that sounds like a really nice sort of thing to do. Great company. That's when it all started, and not looked back ever since, really. Worked through PwC, and here we are.
Amazing. So whilst you were doing your degree, you're also working at PwC and studying for the ACA qualification, like the foundation part of it?
Yeah, so it's you do 1 semester work at PwC, the rest of it at university, and you're doing your ACA alongside your university exams. So it's kind of like you get some exemptions for both, which is great, but obviously it's also a lot of work. I couldn't recommend it to anyone if they've got like kids now going to university, checking out the Flying Start course at PwC. It's fantastic because you come out of university, you've got 3 exams left, you're chartered by the time you're 22, 23. As long as you get a 2-1 essentially at university, you then get offered a job at PwC. I didn't appreciate at the time how amazing it was. I remember going up to for my interview at Newcastle University, and my dad was like sat in the back of the car with me while my mum drove, and was like making me like practice my interview questions. And I hadn't realised at the time like how important this would be for like, you know, setting me up for life. So forever grateful that they sat in the back of the car and made me do that. So, but yeah, then you finish, you get your job at PwC, and then, you know, at that point, it feels like your world's your oyster, really. You've got all that experience behind you. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So you followed that path. How long were you at PwC before you decided to move on to other things?
I've always known I wanted to have a business of some sort. Never knew what it was going to be. And I was always like testing the waters and trying different businesses here and there. So while I was at PwC, I kind of knew that, like, thank you so much for having me, but this isn't going to be for me forever. So when I did pass my final exams and you're allowed to leave, I did give my notice and went to go work in industry as a group financial accountant. But even then, like, amazing job, and, you know, a lot of people would dream to kind of do what I was doing, but I just knew there was something else to me. So that's when I tried a few other businesses and, you know, here and there, but I kind of went, well, maybe this accountancy stuff can work after all. Reluctantly, I started the practice again on my dad's advice. Said, you've tried all these businesses, they haven't worked out too well. You've got the credibility in accountancy, go and do that. One day I was like, you know what? Let's just go and do this. And it was in December, and I made these like leaflets. And if you see them now, like it make you cringe how bad they are. Like some of the letters were kind of off the page a little bit, and I couldn't really afford to get new ones printed. But I went out on a Monday in December to like the local town near me and just started giving out these leaflets. I had 50 leaflets to give out. I was wearing a suit because I thought I need to look like really professional, and it was December, it was freezing cold, and I was like shivering. All I have to do is give out the 50 leaflets no matter what. You know, I walked up and down the high street, walking into like cafes, bars, shops, and basically got like 48 no's, and I had these 2 left and I couldn't find anywhere else to go. And I was like, oh, it's another business which I can't get to work, but a nightmare. And I then went into this bar. I said, are you looking for an accountant by any chance? Here's my leaflet. And he went, do you do bookkeeping as well as accounts? I went, yeah. He went, I do need one. And then it was like, oh my God, best day ever. So that was really the catalyst, which this might work.
So on that day, that was the breakthrough, the one out of 50 that you got to say yes, then led you to start your practice. But just take a little step back, because you kind of skipped over the other businesses you started, which you say didn't work well. You know, now with hindsight, nothing is really a failure. A fail, I love the acronym. FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. And that definitely was a learning experience for you. You started a business, for whatever reason, it didn't succeed, but there were learnings from that you then took into your next business. So what did you put that down to? How much traction did they get? How long did you run those businesses for? What businesses were they? And at what point did you say, okay, it's not working? And then have that conversation with your dad to say, yeah, I should probably do something that I have some sort of experience in.
So they all kind of stemmed around marketing. Initially, I kind of went down the social media marketing agencies. Because at the time on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, that was kind of the thing that was really trending. Trying to get emails for people from LinkedIn and Instagram, whatever, and ends up cold emailing them. Now that didn't get traction, because what I then learned, like you said, these failures are lessons. I then learned, okay, well, email marketing probably isn't, if you don't know somebody, probably isn't the way to go. But kind of picked up one client from that, and it was a client in the fitness industry. And they said, actually, I don't need help with marketing. What I need help with is like a bit of admin support and, helping me to kind of maybe monetize this audience I've got. So I then helped this guy to launch a fitness app. And I thought, okay, maybe I can scale that. But then I couldn't really get to work with anybody else. Again, this is kind of like probably a year of trying these things and these progressing. And I never really got there. And I just got to a point in about October, so about 12 months into all of this, where I was just like, I'm exhausted. Like I was working, obviously been at PwC, which is a tough job. And then I worked as a group financial accountant, which is a tough job. And my evenings and weekends was just me, like really, really like working myself to the bone. And I just crashed and really struggled. I kind of gave up for a bit. I remember playing football on a Sunday, and I almost felt like a passenger. I was playing football, and all I could think about was like how disappointed I was. I hadn't been able to do this, and like, okay. And that was a really like low moment for me. The reason I think things didn't take off so much is because I didn't have the credibility in the space. I hadn't done it for long enough. And my dad said to me, listen, your credibility is that you've got your ACA qualification here. Go and give that a go. I didn't enjoy accounts at the time. I thought, I don't want to do that. But I sat on it, and then I thought, okay, let's give this another go, which I think being an entrepreneur, a lot of it is just, okay, let's take a break and then we go again. And then that takes me to that Monday when I get out those business cards. Yeah.
Amazing. And you didn't have any issues with, I don't know what you were doing at PwC, but did you feel that you had the skill set in order to be able to help small business owners? Had you developed some of that experience at PwC? Because I know at PwC you can be pigeonholed if you're doing audit. You don't really know how to do bookkeeping and accounts because you're doing high-level audit work or ticking and bashing, that kind of thing. Were you comfortable that you had the know-how to be able to do the stuff that the small business, the cafes, the bars, etc., would have required?
I don't think I learned those skills from PwC. I think I kind of went into it with naivety of I'll work it out. And obviously, you've done your exams, you do kind of understand things a little bit, and I knew I would find answers on YouTube. What I did learn from PwC and my subsequent job at Euro Garages was what an amazing team looks like. At PwC, you get put in lots of different teams, lots of different managers, and almost all the teams were amazing, and I enjoyed my job more, and I had better output, and a few teams which weren't so great, and that really helped me to think, what kind of business do I want to have when I'm growing my practice? Do I want to have timesheets? How do I want to, bring people on? And it's really shaped me to know what a good business looks like, what processes look like, because you have your library procedures at PwC and you have to tick things in. So it gave me those skills, but the skills to actually launch the practice was I trust myself to work this out. I've passed the exams, and it was kind of just have a go.
Yeah, amazing. So talk me through that first year then. You got your first client on that rainy, cold December morning. What does the first year of business look like?
Every Saturday, then repeating that process of going out with business cards. So I'd go, so I'm from like Blackburn, Burnley way. So I'd type in posh towns near, and then I'd find a list of like 20 of them. And I'd think, okay, hopefully these guys can afford some premium accounting services was kind of the aim. And, you know, I'd go to Clitheroe, Harrogate, all over and give out. I'd spend 6 hours every Saturday doing this. I'd say maybe 1 in 50, 1 in 100 would then become a client. And that's when you learn sales is, you know, there's a skill to sales, but it's a numbers game. So that was really the first 6 months, to be honest. At which point I kind of grew the practice to maybe like 4 or 5 grand a month or something like that, which is, you know, good enough for me to kind of think about quitting my job. And yeah. And then I went to Bali to go meet my best friend Patrick. So Patrick was also at PwC, and he'd been traveling around with his girlfriend, and he was in Australia. So I met him in Bali, and I said, I've got something good going on here. When you come back, don't get a job. I think you should start an accounting practice as well. And he's like, you know, when I come back, maybe I will. So time passes, he comes back and he goes, okay, how did you win your first clients? And I told him the story that I've just told you about the business cards. He said, okay. And he put his suit and his tie on, and he went out to go and give out business cards. And then he messaged me and he said, how do you do this? This is really difficult. This is really nerve wracking. And that's the easy bit. Like the hard bit, the boring bit's doing the accounts and the bookkeeping. And he said, no, that's the easy bit. So at that point, that's when I ended up teaming up with Patrick, and we, you know, became co-founders. And that was really like when we were able to elevate the business, because I was able to do more of the marketing and he was able to manage that side of the business. I got very lucky. But when I say lucky, I often tell that my mentee is about making your own luck and about the numbers game. I was in Harrogate, and I was having a meeting with this cafe owner who clearly wasn't interested in my accounting services. And I've been to him 3 times now. I've spent a lot of time to go meet him. And he basically said, I'm not interested in your services. And as I walked out of the cafe, a gentleman said, oh, excuse me, are you an accountant? I was like, yes, I am an accountant. How can I help? And we had a bit of a conversation. And this individual ends up becoming our biggest client at the time. Is £18,000 a year for management accounts and everything there. And that was a really pivotal moment in, you know, this has now gone to another level, and full steam ahead from there.
You get out there and, like you say, you make your own luck. You put in the reps, and let the universe do its thing. Fantastic. So in that, so Patrick joins you within the first year?
Yeah, within the first
year he joins you. And how does the practice then grow from there? And how did you come up with, you know, pricing? Because that's probably not something that, it's not something we taught when we do our accountancy training, or even at PwC, they use time and timesheets. How did you come up with your prices back in the day? At
the start, as I'm sure many people who you work with, it's finger in the air, what kind of feels right. Yeah. Again, I feel like I got very lucky with my first 2 clients, because I quoted one of them like over £300 a month and the other one over £300 a month, and they both accepted. Whereas if I'd gone to the next 8 people first who would all said no, and I charged them £100 a month, then maybe I wouldn't have realised that was possible. It's definitely one of the things which you spend a lot of time like researching and trying and failing at. That was kind of the approach at the start, which isn't the best, but it's kind of what you have to do at the start.
Yeah. We all learn in the same way, kind of wing it, and then realize when things don't quite right that actually there's better ways of doing things. So how does the practice then take off then? Patrick joins. What does your kind of year 1 numbers look like? And then year 2, how does it all take off?
We got the practice to like 10K per month, and I was still working full time. So, you know, that's, you know, probably end of year 1, we're probably doing about 10K per month. At which point Patrick's working all day to manage all the clients, and I'm doing the evenings and the weekends, which was really, really tough. And my house purchase went through, but the company I was working at, we were about to go through the audit process, and I didn't feel comfortable, like, because I was, you know, group financial accountant, I didn't feel comfortable handing my notice in. So I kind of handed it in, but I said, listen, rather than do 3 months, I'll do like 5.5 months notice with the do the audit. The business was growing. Because I'd now told them I was leaving, I could start posting on social media, which was really, really beneficial to bringing in leads. Because, you know, if I was going out on a Saturday and giving out 100 business cards, if I post a video and it did badly, it was getting 250 views. So that's 250 business cards. And then, you know, one day we posted a video about holding companies, and it got like 40,000 views, and then a lot of inquiries. So that really started to grow. You know, it was go to bed at 2 a.m, wake up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 6 days a week. Really, really, really tough. Which had a real strain on me. I basically got really sick through the stress and the anxiety of all of it, and had to go to hospital, and was all okay, thankfully. But I kind of said to my work, I've got you as far as I can with this audit. I need to go and work on the practice now. And they were amazing and really supportive and said, you go and do that. And then that was kind of like the shackles were off, and now we can go full steam ahead on the practice. And then it was just posting consistently on Instagram, posting consistently on TikTok. For that second year, we kind of went from getting on average maybe 2,000 views a video, 3,000. And then December, January, February, every video was getting like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 views. When we had a really small following, but just the way it's just doing well on Facebook especially.
Facebook or TikTok?
It's just through Facebook. So we linked our Instagram account to Facebook, so it posts on it automatically. And I hadn't done it before, and I just did it. And I don't know what happened, but the videos just went from getting like a few thousand to 30,000. And when I looked at the metrics, it was like 25,000 Facebook. And then we went from, we're growing like $2,000 a month in recurring monthly fees every single month. And that sort of takes us up to, we need to start hiring.
Yeah. Fantastic. And where did that first thought come to you to start posting on social media to win work? Because a lot of accountants naturally are a bit afraid of getting on camera, getting on video. Was there something about you that you thought, this is easy, I don't mind doing this, I've seen other people do it in other, I suppose maybe this is some of the learnings from your previous ventures and working with perhaps, fitness influencers, where you just looked at that and thought, this is the norm, I've seen other people scale businesses through video, I need to do this because I know it works with other businesses. Was that your thought process?
We knew that we wanted to market ourselves on social media. We didn't know how to do it at that point. We're thinking like, we post some like photos and like carousels you can scroll through with value. And then we saw other accountants doing it. So I remember seeing an early Josh Thomas video and seeing an early Rachel Harris video. And then just talked to the camera, and I sent it to Patrick and I said, obviously this is what we should do. And this is kind of when they were at the start of what they were doing. And then I was just like, okay, let's just do it. And I absolutely hated it. And I was showing my mentees on one of our calls recently, because a lot of them are kind of just starting to do content, and I showed them my first video, and I'm literally got my eyes open like this, like I'm a bit in the headlights sort of thing, and it's terrible. And it took me like 40 attempts to not get the words wrong. I don't like doing the content, but I'm going to love what it gives, but what it produces for the business. Thankfully, we started getting good views within the first sort of month or two, so you could see it paying us back quite quickly.
So you got results within the first month from a brand new account to getting leads. What was your cadence? Was it once a day, posting consistently? How long did it take to get that first reward that you needed to keep going?
I'd probably say is within the first 2 months, probably posting 5 times per week video content. And that win came on TikTok. And I think that was also partially, TikTok was kind of new at that point, and there was a lot of traction on there. So initially, a lot of the growth came through TikTok. Getting the results on Instagram is a much longer process. We probably didn't get anything from there for the first 6 months, but posting all the same videos. You can get easier and quicker wins on TikTok, but you can't get as high quality leads through TikTok. And because with TikTok, all the content you see on there is strangers. So you don't build that same brand that you do with the same person's content. At the time, Instagram was, if you follow somebody, you only see the people's content who you follow. Now that's changed a little bit, but you were able to build a real connection with your audience on there.
And now is your main lead source from Instagram itself?
Yeah, Instagram followed by referrals.
Amazing. Fantastic. And what kind of inquiries are you seeing come through Instagram on a typical week, month?
Some weeks we'll get 20, and then some weeks we'll get 2.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit of a roller coaster.
And is it based upon what you're doing at the moment, or are kind of even older videos bringing in the inquiries once someone follows you for a while and they go through the backlog and see something they like and then get in touch off the back of that video?
Yeah, generally it's people who followed for a while, and then their year end comes up, or then their accountant does something which annoys them, and then they reach out to you. Is generally what happens. Right now we're going through a bit of a pivot. So we've always been a generalist practice. We're a generalist practice to 300k sort of revenue, and we've now shifted into creators, educators, and consultants. So we've just seen a massive drop in views. We're now getting, and we're fine with this, by the way. We're getting 500 views on a video, 1,000 views here and there, because we're so direct. And I know you talk about this a lot. We're so direct with our marketing message. We're getting 500 views from our ideal clients. So now all the leads that we're getting in are exactly what we want. The conversion rate on the sales calls is fantastic. I know more about the industry, so I can give them more value and charge slightly higher fees. So it's a real balance, I think, of putting out videos which are going to get you massive views. For example, if I was to post a video of most efficient way to pay yourself as a director in 2025, I know it'd get 50,000 views, but it's not going to get me what I want. So it's actually dropping the ego and realizing I want 500 views from a consultant doing 50 grand a month. I don't want to get 100,000 views from everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I say the same thing. It's, do you want to be famous or do you want to make money? And they don't always go hand in hand, because you can get lots of views and they're ultimately the vanity metrics that, yeah, feed the ego. But off the back end, is it actually resulting in the kind of business that you want, where you can be that specialist, charge the premium and be able to grow a practice sustainably? When did you start hiring at what point? Because I normally find that up to 250K, 300, I guess in your case, it might be a bit more because you had a partner. Up to 250K, normally a solo founder can do it. But then it's about, right, you need to now hire. Who were your first hires and how did you find them? And what does that kind of look like at the moment?
Decided we wanted to start hiring around about January, and went through that interview process, went through recruiters for that, and found an amazing candidate, offered her the job. We were confident she'd take it, and then she took another job. So we're like, demoralized. We then went through the process again, found somebody, that fell through. At this point, we've done like 20, 30 interviews, and I'm sure you know how demoralizing and exhausting it is. You're like, and also this is when the videos are doing really, really well. I'm kind of saying like, I don't want to say no to all this great work. Patrick is working like crazy hours because he's delivering the service more than I am. Is us communicating, him being like, and fair play to him, he said, Josh, look, I can see this getting out of hand. And this is why it's so important to, I think, have a co-founder is really useful. See, this is getting out of hand, let's just put a halt on bringing people in, which was amazing. And we did that. We built up a waiting list, which was fantastic. And then we kind of went back into, okay, we need to get back into recruiting. Now, because of my university course, which we looked within our friendship group, which we talked about at the start, but we thought we don't want to do this because this could be risky. I don't want to ruin a friendship. And we basically spoke to one of our friends who we knew was kind of interested in joining the practice. And we said, listen, we've interviewed 30 people. To be honest, we actually think you're better suited for this. How do you feel about this? And then, had discussions about that, interviewed him. And the first hire we had after failing twice was Ryan, who's now works the practice and is fantastic. Yeah. Then during that process, obviously we've been working with a recruiter, and we said to him, if anyone comes across your table at any point who you think is fantastic, just send them to us, and we will probably hire them, and we'll worry about winning the clients later. A month later, got a phone call, got this guy, I think he'd be great for you to kind of interview. So then we interviewed him and then hired him, but offered him a job 1 month after we offered Ryan a job. So now we've got Ryan and Tom both in the practice managing the clients, which has been amazing, difficult, stressful all at the same time. But I feel really positive about where we are right now. And definitely, I don't know if you can relate to this, but definitely I feel really, when I see the team working together and I hear them on calls talking about clients, I feel really proud. Yeah. Almost, I don't have kids, but imagine what it's like when your kid scores a goal at football or something like that. So that's a really nice element now to the business.
Amazing. Fantastic. So you've got 2 client managers, yourself, Patrick. Do you have any admin support? Because admin is a huge thing now in accounting firms. Or do you just let the client managers handle their own admin?
Yeah, so we have a team. Because we're a fully remote practice, so I often travel around. The account managers are all in the UK. But we also have admin staff overseas, so they'll help with a lot of his onboarding, bits of bookkeeping here and there, and that then feeds into the account managers. They review all the work, do any sort of tax planning checks, and then they then feed that back to the clients. So we try and keep everything streamlined, but the focus is on making sure our clients have one point of contact who, when they want to pick up the phone and call them, they can give them an answer within 24 hours, 48 hours. That's kind of our main focus.
Amazing. And did you hire the admin before or after the client managers?
We hired the admin first, but that was just for bookkeeping support. So that was, for onboarding support. Yeah. So that was for 2 hours a day, essentially. And she's essentially now my assistant, Reza. She's fantastic, helps me with everything. So that was our first hire. And then it was bookkeeping support to help Patrick, and then it was bringing on the account and tax managers.
I mean, I know there's so much admin that we have to do in accounting firms, and I always say that if you break down your day and you do the only time you can do a timesheet, I say to my mentees, is when you do your own personal timesheet. Write down exactly what it is that you are doing and put it into categories: admin, client delivery, marketing, sales, hiring. And if you find that there's anything on your calendar in a given week, work out how many hours you're spending on admin. That's the first thing that you need to delegate, because essentially what you're doing is a £10, £15 an hour task, which somebody else could do. And your time is a lot more valuable and needs to be spent in a much more higher value activity like marketing, sales, even client delivery is higher than admin. So you should not be doing admin. That's the first thing that you need to offload, outsource, delegate to somebody else to do it, because it's not cost effective. Amazing. Now, and I guess how does it feel then to be able to have now the team in place? What does that allow you to do? Because clearly bringing on people is great and you've found good people within your network, but that comes with a financial commitment as well. So even though you've got to, 250, 300 turnover, now hiring 2 people, that's going to hit the margins, right? But in your mind, what gave you that confidence that, yes, I don't mind hiring people, because that means that it's going to free me up to be able to go and do what I love doing, which is to go grow the practice, spend on marketing.
So I actually had a bit of almost an identity crisis going through this period. So I was with my friend Jack, and I was thinking, right now we're making good money. I've got all this freedom. If I want to go and work from Bali, I can work from Bali. If I start bringing on staff, I need to make sure that I'm there for them 9 to 5 if they have questions. I mean, they can all work flexibly, but I've got to be there during those hours. And do I want to lose that freedom which I wanted because I was in the corporate world? We had a really useful discussion with him, and he said, listen, where do you want the business to go? And I said, I want to grow it to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million turnover eventually. Can you do that without going through this hiring process? And I was like, no, I can't. And that was a real moment of clarity. And that was when I was going through that hiring process. This is what I need to get to where I want to go to. Yeah, absolutely one of the best decisions. It gives you a new lease of life within the business. It's now about, you almost feel like you want to do it for the team. You want, when I bring on clients, I'm more picky now about which clients we let in, because I don't want the team to work with people who I wouldn't want to work with. Yeah. So it's also, I think, elevated the business. It reminded me, as we were building out our SOPs and training videos, reminded me about things which I already had learnt. If I'm telling them to do something, it's like, well, I need to make sure I'm doing this. So it's helped me to elevate my game. All around now, it's just that recognizing that we're doing so much more. We're growing faster than ever. We're building quickly. We're building, getting momentum because we're doing it as a team. We're on a mission.
And what are you finding? So now you're freed up from more of the operational client delivery side, so you can focus more on sales and marketing. Where are you putting your efforts to continue to grow and scale the practice?
Practice side, very much just marketing, social media, scripting videos, podcasts, and sales calls. And I will eventually be away from sales calls, but I actually really enjoy them. And then the other half of my time has now been on the mentorship side of things. So we've launched the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Accelerator back in August. And I was quizzing you before, asking you for tips on stuff, which has been really, really useful. So I know you're killing it. So now my time is building out resources for that. At the moment, we're keeping the community quite small because it's it's new. I want to make sure that everyone's getting results. So we have weekly calls. I pull together presentations for those. Everyone gets one-to-one calls with me. So a lot of my attention now is on just trying to build that business out, but taking the same approach that we did with the practice, which is make sure our clients in the practice are saving tax and getting a great service, and everything else will come with it. And right now, it's about make sure these practice owners or people who want to have practices are getting results. And as long as they're getting results, I don't really mind about how that business does at the moment. It's just about, getting those client wins, which is really powerful.
And you now enjoy the mentorship side more than you do growing the practice.
I tell this to my mentees quite a lot, and it's still now, I think, the best moment of my entire life. And it sounds silly, but it was probably March of the first year of the business when I was giving out those business cards. And I was driving to work, and maybe I had 3 or 4 clients at this point. And on the way to work, I had emails and a phone call come in. And I was going to put some fuel in on the way to work. And there's 3, essentially 2 emails and a call was, yes, I want to go ahead with your services. And I got back into the car and I drove towards work, and Coldplay was on the radio, Paradise. And I remember just turning the music up and being I'm so happy about best thing ever. And I drove straight past the junction to work. And I drove up and down the motorway for like half an hour because I didn't want to go in because I was so excited. And that was a buzz I used to get from winning clients. I started to get that buzz when people would then DM me on Instagram and say, you know, how can I grow practice, or how do I launch a business? And I was like helping people for free. And it was then seeing like them quitting their job or them getting a client win. And I got that buzz back. And now all I really want to do when I wake up is check those messages. We have Monday wins. Mondays, I love them because everyone posts like what they've done for the week. Read through those. Out of the community, there were 3 people who joined who still had jobs. And all 3 of them now, 3 months on, they've all quit their jobs. So I'm just like, I just feel so proud about that. So I just want to do more of that.
And did you find any difficulty getting out of the client relationships in the practice? How did you navigate that? Because clearly when you are that point of contact and now suddenly the client can't email you or phone you and they're palmed off to somebody else, how did you manage that? Because I know practice owners that get to that point where they need to start getting out of the client work sometimes struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're more going through that now than we did initially, because from the start it was very much Patrick leading on that, and he's not been out on socials as I have. That initial thing was kind of fine because that's the way that we work. Now that we're hiring, we're now trying to make the transition of allocating our clients between, you know, the staff. So that's something we're doing at the moment, and it's very much making sure that every call, Patrick and the client manager is on every call, and that's going to be our plan for as long as we can manage to do that. There's also an element now where, because now people get on calls with me, and I tell them about how we work, and I tell them now on the call, you know, you're going to be working with one of the lads and Patrick, which, you know, as you're aware, I was hoping to work with you. But what we do have now in the practice is, because I'm naturally like more entrepreneurial and I'm not as good as tax as the other guys, and the guys are much better at tax, but maybe less entrepreneurial. We have this real hybrid approach where our clients come to me if they want to ask about opportunities. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I'll get on a call with any client. So they still have that touch point with me. And I'm never going to stop doing that because that's the bit I love. But it's as long as they know that I'm still available for them in certain situations, then that's kind of how I'm managing it at the moment. I'm sure as the business continues to grow, I'll face that challenge again. So maybe I'll have to message you and ask you for some advice. So far, so good. It's just, you know, do things slowly. Don't get greedy. Client first. And you can't go too far wrong.
Yeah, fantastic, amazing. No, that's awesome. Do you have any? I mean, I've got a take on this, but a lot of accountants they get hung up about this in terms of, you know, what KPIs do you need to have for your team, and what do you have to make sure that they are generating the output that they should be? What's your view on that, and what do you have in place, if anything, regarding KPIs for the team?
We aren't very good at this at the moment. So this is what we're learning right now. Don't track time, flexible working, output driven. Right now, we aren't really properly tracking output in the way that we should be doing. We can kind of see, you know, the value of people's portfolios based on the monthly recurring work. And we do have company goals. So at the start of every month, my target is bringing in the monthly recurring work. And then we have targets for, you know, how many bookkeeping reports we get out, self-assessments done, year-end accounts, et cetera, et cetera. So we do track that as a team. We don't track that individually at the moment. What's been important to you in your practice for that?
Yeah, so it's evolved over time. And I guess it's very different. You can kind of get away with it when you've only got a couple of people. As it evolves, we've got a team of 20 now. But even so, we've gone through waves where we had very strict KPIs and then less strict KPIs. Some people, and a lot of accountants out there, that will have a huge spreadsheet of KPIs. But if something is working and it's working fine, what's the point of measuring it? Just measuring for the sake of measuring it, and you're spending more time trying to work out, you know, how many mistakes to make on payroll, or, you know, some people have a whole massive spreadsheet full of big KPIs. Whatever is in their control, then that's something you can hold them accountable to. Other things, like you say, a lot of operational people, client managers, they're not really in control of the growth of the business. That's kind of usually the founder's role. Get out there initially, do the marketing, do the sales to bring the business in. What they are responsible for ultimately is managing the client portfolio, managing a portfolio that gives the business a return on the salary that the business has invested. So if you're paying someone a salary, they need to generate a return of 4 to 5 times. So that's kind of the benchmark that we use as a starting point to see that has each client manager got a portfolio that is generating a multiple of their salary to the business.
4 to 5 times?
4 to 5, it can be 4 to 5 times. When they come in, it might be 2 or 3 times initially, but they can work towards 4 to 5 times, not just their salary, but the pod cost. So when you kind of grow and they've got supporting bookkeepers or whatever, it's the total pod. But then some people will have different skill sets. Some people they just like to churn stuff out. And therefore, what we've moved to is we have a key roles and responsibilities and the pay scales for each of those. So now it's become very transparent. So everybody knows where they are, what the roles and responsibilities are of their level. So it goes from client manager to senior client manager to team leader to associate director. And they can see what the roles and responsibilities like, what the kind of the financial output is in terms of management of portfolio, how many people you're managing. Because again, some people are great at doing the work, but not that great at managing. So, but a manager would have, it's more valuable to a business to be able to bring people up than someone just churning out the work. So there's different levels. And that was the one system where I was still the bottleneck because I was still doing the hiring. I'm still setting salaries. So that's something that I worked on as the last system to get out of the practice completely, where now we have a hiring system. We've got that document in place. We've got the salaries. That obviously evolves over time, but it means there's a system out there. Just like I created a pricing system, which means that anyone on my team can price up a client because there's a system there they can follow. It's no longer in my head. Same with the marketing system. Now same with the hiring system because I was still the bottleneck. So it's just about thinking, okay, what is still landing with me? How can I get out? What am I doing when it comes to hiring? Get that process out of my head into a process, teach them the process, let them follow it. And for hiring, yes, there's a process for hiring in terms of how we hire based upon, okay, this is the interview process. Then it's, core values. Then it might be some sort of tests. And then it's, 2 or 3 interviews with the other team members. Okay, that is a process I'm doing every single time. So if something is repeatable, it can be put into a process for somebody else to follow. And then having that benchmark. So, that's how, large companies, the CEO is not doing hiring. There are HR managers or other people that are doing the hiring. Why? Because they've got a system that they can follow to do that. So that's kind of the stage that we're at, having that system, having the overarching roles and responsibilities. And if there's something that's going wrong in the business, then we'll attach a KPI to it and have that for a season, for a quarter to say, right, okay, well, we're not doing too great on the turnaround of accounts within, say, 4 months of the year end. That's something we're going to focus on. Every week, we need to share what is our number. And for the next 90 days, we need to get to this amount. So let's track it. So something like Google reviews, right, okay, we need to push these now. Right, every week, we're going to track it. Our target for the next quarter is X amount. Let's track it. So, tracking what's important, what's actually going to move the needle for the business as any particular season or quarter that we're working.
I think that is really useful for myself. I think the reason that I said we're not very good at that is what you've said there. Right now, touch wood, everything's going really well, so there's no need for us to track anything. And I think in the past when we have tracked things and we've set targets, if it's for me to bring in client work or whatever it is, it's because that's what we're falling behind on. So that's really useful for me to maybe not to stress about that so much and actually just what does the business need as a KPI at that moment in time is really useful. And I think what you said there about the processes and, bringing things in over time and, to alleviate yourself. When a member of staff has done something wrong, whether that be admin, bookkeeping, client managers, you always have to look at yourself and say, how did they do this wrong? What was I not clear on? And then building processes around that. So even when I work with, I've got an editor who does all our stuff, when a video comes back to me and there's obviously the subtitle shouldn't be in that font because I've never used that font before. Well, does the design brief say what font to put it in? And when you start taking ownership of other people's mistakes where you can, I found that to actually make things that feel out of your control, actually, no, I'm in control of these. And I think that's what we do really, really well.
Rather than blaming others, it's about taking ownership of that. It's that kind of all-bed ownership, accountability, responsibility, above the line type thinking, as opposed to kind of blame, excuses and denial, all-bed. If you come across that, that's quite a good way to approach things, especially in business, that's how we should operate as business owners and cultivate that amongst our kind of senior leadership managers as well. Josh, it's been a pleasure listening to your story. Thank you for sharing so openly. It's been fascinating. Well done. Congrats for what you've achieved. You've done remarkably well. Long may it continue. And I hope you are even more successful in a few years' time than you are today. Any parting words of advice to budding practice owners or practice owners who are perhaps struggling with life at the moment, or all the challenges they have running their firms?
Clarity comes from doing something. You can't think your way into clarity. You have to do something and then realize it was right or there's an opportunity elsewhere. And just starting and seeing if it feels right or if there's traction there is I think the most powerful thing. I think it's the easiest thing for somebody to be able to do, but I think it's a thing that people don't do the most, which they could.
Yeah, amazing, fantastic. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you. Appreciate it.